Love this guy. One of my favorites that I've gotten to meet in all my years with the NFL Network. He is the head coach of the New Orleans Saints, Sean Payton. How are you, Coach?
Rich, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm better for talking to you. How was that draft? What number draft is this for you, like grand total drafts?
That's a good question. 97 was my first one coming into the league as an assistant. I think 20. I'm bad at math. If I wasn't holding the phone, I'd be using my left finger.
So 25, quarter century.
25, I think.
Quarter century of drafts. Congratulations.
Right.
I don't know what you get somebody for that. I guess that's a silver anniversary. I'll get you something silver. How about Lombardi Trophy? How does that sound? Do you like that?
Well, another one would be great. I don't think they're just handing those out, but listen, a lot's happened. This was unique relative to the draft process. Compared to other years, for players as well as scouts and teams, without the combine per se, the season, a lot of interrupted 7-game schedules, 5 games, 6 games, some players not playing. The most notable thing for us, when the draft ended, you're on the phone with a number of college free agents. Each team is signing a number of players that turn out to be real good football players. That number was almost down 1,000.
No kidding.
Just because of players returning for another season. So the size of the draft class was smaller, and I think conversely next year, when we have our next draft, I think we're going to see a much larger class.
Sean Payton here on the Rich Eisen Show. Let's talk the number of reports I saw before the draft that you were trying to trade up into the top 10, quarterback minded, or potentially as Mac Jones was falling to middle of the draft to get him, but you stayed put. Walk us through what happened on draft night, if you can.
Yeah, it was pretty simple. Look, we felt there were a couple players that we'd move up for, and for us, we have a must-at corner, and so there were 2 corners graded, both Horn and Surtain with real high grades. And very quickly, early in the week, it's pretty common for teams to say, hey, we have an interest. Everyone's basically open for business. But ultimately, there wasn't a team wanting to move out of the first 10 picks. And so I think that lasted all of, a half an hour maybe of the morning of reaching out to these teams. And the cost would have been, if we found a trade partner, too high. So, at that point, our feeling was, it's going to come to us at 28, and let's make sure we have our cloud of players ready. And it's exactly what happened. So
the top 10 possibility was targeting a corner in mind because of...
It was a corner, but I would say this. If you make a trade while you're not on the clock, or the club that you're trading with is not on the clock, you do have to have some contingency plans in the event that, let's say, both those corners were taken before 9 or 8 or wherever that trade took you. If you make one on the clock, you know your player's available. So I think it was, the beginning of this draft, so much time spent on the beginning of the draft, and everyone discusses it, predicts it. It went fairly smooth. I think the first pick that people were split on, or not split, but hey, what was Cincinnati going to do? Were they going to take the left tackle or the receiver? And of course they took the receiver. So I don't know that there were any real hiccups. Certainly at 3, what quarterback were the 49ers going to take? And then after that, it went fairly smoothly. But yeah, there really wasn't much interest at all in anyone moving out. And our mindset at the start was for a corner, and we saw that wasn't going to happen quickly. Then we just stayed right where we were at.
So, man, Sean, if the Saints had gotten J.C. Horn, you would have had to nail the pads and the goalposts down shut, wouldn't you?
Right. Well, he's a tremendous player, and unfortunately, he's in our division. I think it's a good pick by Carolina.
That's right.
He was a real competitive player. You saw it on film, and did so many things well at that position. But we had an opportunity here early on. We coached Joe, his father, and
yes,
I think they're different type of. Well, they're both extremely athletic, but personality wise, there's probably some uniquenesses that are different with them. But yeah, all good though, and I'm sure Joe's proud of him.
Sean Payton here on the Rich Eisen Show. Let's talk about your quarterback depth chart, which I'm sure you're familiar with talking about. Starting first with the fact, I just want to kick the tires on this. I remember, when we talked on this show, many, many moons ago, when Brees did decide to come back, that there was a time where you thought like maybe he wouldn't. Was there a time at any point in time where you thought maybe he would come back in the weeks that it took to finally hear from Drew on the subject?
No, I think this year it was. I don't want to say it was a certainty, but I think Drew felt the same, that this was going to be his final season. I only say that because we felt that way last season when the season ended. He had kind of hinted about maybe that being the year. And so I think heading into this year, I think I'm sure that I don't want to speak for him, but I'm sure he felt that way, and we did the same.
So your depth chart, is there a competition at the top, or is this Jameis's gig? Okay, there is.
There is. I think both Taysom and Jameis, are going to have plenty of opportunities once we get into the training camp and the preseason games, to see those two guys compete. Trevor Siemian is, I think, still a young player that I feel positive about. He's on our depth chart, and then we just drafted Ian Book out of Notre Dame. It's getting these guys together, and look, there's going to be 3 preseason games, and the challenge is, do you have enough reps there? But I think, look, that room has been really good, obviously, with Drew in it, and we had Teddy Bridgewater here for a while, with Taysom, and then when he left, we were able to sign Jameis, and these guys are, pretty competitive, but also guys that get along, and football is really important to them.
Well, obviously, if Jameis is your starter, Hill still has a role, and if vice versa, Hill gets the start, then Jameis would be in the role that we saw him in, I guess, when Hill was the backup to Brees when Brees was hurt last year. Or is there a possibility you could do something similar to what we even saw Jameis come in and heave one down the field, in the playoffs? Like, is there a possibility? Do you think there is a possibility for having a 2-quarterback system ever in the NFL?
Yeah, look, I think as much as I think the furthest we went with that would have been, when everyone was healthy and Taysom was playing, call it 8 to 10 plays, maybe a quarterback. I would never discount that, but I would say this, he knows, and so does Jameis, that, we're looking to find the guy that's going to lead our team this year. And that doesn't mean the other player is not going to have a role. But certainly it varies. If Jameis is starting, obviously Taysom has a role that expands not only just offensively, but on special teams, et cetera. And if it's the other way around, it's probably a little bit more limited, just relative to what Jameis would do. And then, I say young guys. I mean, I think I consider Trevor still young, and of course Ian, who's a rookie. We'll see what those guys have, and we've kind of had to do it a little bit up to this point. 2 years ago, Teddy played 5 games, and then last year Taysom played 4, and we've been beyond fortunate to to have gone 15 years with, all the things that Drew has provided at that position. I mean, that's an amazing career. And so that transition has begun, and, we look at then a lot of what we're going to do offensively based on who's doing it, and then how do we put an offense around those players or that player. So I do think there's a little bit influx, Rich, relative to who's starting and then the roles each player has. Some of that will be training camp driven.
Saints head coach Sean Payton here on the Rich Eisen Show. What'd you see in Ian Book that made you think, okay, let's get him in the system.
Well,
let's figure something out here with him.
Man, the big games, and you watch him time and time again. I think he's a good athlete. He's 6 foot. And man, when it was a big game in a competitive moment, in the pocket, I saw him out of the pocket make plays. I think he's accurate. I like his decision making. I think he's a winner. And there were just enough good things that kept coming up when you watched him play. His first game against Clemson. He's the all-time winningest quarterback in Notre Dame history. And we asked that. I mean, that's the function of that position. Lead your team to scores. Find a way to win games. He's a pretty impressive guy. When you look at his journey and then when you talk to anybody, coaches, scouts, players, all the feedback is off the charts. And so, we were at that point in the draft where we felt it matched his grade, and I'm excited to work with him.
Well, I mean, Daniel Jeremiah, as soon as you drafted him, he was sitting on the draft set with me on NFL Network, Coach, jumped up, and and obviously this is a height-weight comparison, but Breeze, he said he's got the same build. He's like a carbon copy, is what he basically said. What do you think?
I think that's the first comparison. I think it's an easy one when you look at the stature, the stature, and I'm sure a little bit different. They played in a little bit different type of offenses in college, but periodically when you make a selection during the draft, you might get a text from another GM or another coach or someone who in the industry, and that happens throughout the draft. And I can recall after that selection a number of GMs and coaches who I respect right away. And it was beyond just their favorite. Hey, and even, a well-respected retired general manager who right away said, you might have gotten one of the better quarterbacks in the draft. And the great thing is we get a chance to find out.
How's Parcells? Is he somebody who's texting you, giving you thoughts?
He does. It wasn't who I was discussing,
okay.
But he does. And he was compromised a little this year because this was the first year the draft fell on Derby Saturday. It's never happened before.
It's
always been the week prior to the Derby.
Right.
And so when Saturday came around, and if you recall, we're in the 7th round, and
Riders
they were
are up.
reading Riders Up.
That's right. That's right.
Like, there were a lot of draft rooms that had 2 TV sets going.
Were you one of them? One of your draft rooms?
Absolutely, we were. We had a picture of Secretariat up in our draft room on Saturday.
What for? Just as inspiration, something like that?
To honor the one of the greatest thoroughbred racehorses ever. And
all right,
yeah, we put Secretariat up, but we were in the 7th round and actively involved in a selection. I think though. I think to credit the networks, that race went off a little later than expected, and it worked for everyone.
It did. In the few minutes I have left with you, Sean Payton, if you don't mind, I want to hit something competition committee. I know you're on it. How do we get rid of the fumbling through the end zone? Is a ball that goes to the defense. I can't stand it. You might have a different approach to it.
No, listen,
I hate it.
It seems odd, but I would say it's probably like 14th on my list of things that drive me crazy, but that doesn't mean that it shouldn't be higher up there. We're getting ready to have meetings with rookies in our facilities here next weekend. And when they meet with us, now they're going to be out on the practice field and they're going to be in the weight room. But when they meet with us, we go into our offices and we send them to their meeting rooms and we have a virtual meeting with them. And that'll be the first time we've ever done that.
So that's number one on your list? Is that what you're saying?
But it's right there with the fumble into the end zone.
Okay.
I think it's been discussed. It's been brought up a lot. I feel like it happens 3 times a season.
Right.
And especially, players today are really they do a great job at diving for that pylon, touch the pylon,
it's exciting.
Part of the pylon.
It's an aggressive. It's an aggressive play that's exciting. That's what fans want to see. And I know, and coaches are teaching players not to do that, coaching them not to do that because you don't want to lose possession of the ball. That's why I'm saying let's change it, like a reverse touchback. That if it happens on 3rd and goal, it's now 3rd and goal from the 20. But you at least get a shot at throwing it in the end zone, making another play, getting a field goal out of it. It seems to bail out a defense. I hate it.
We could go the route of like chutes and ladders. If it happens, you're back on your own 20. You go all the way back to like the beginning.
I love the chutes and ladders. I love that. I don't mind it. It just drives me crazy, and it's going to happen in a Super Bowl, and the whole country's going to freak out over it, and then it'll really be number one on your list of a competition committee. You know how that works. Yeah. So.
Yeah. It is something that's been discussed, and it's something that you're right. As a head coach, it's one of the situations that we discuss during training camp. We'll bring it up. We'll try to attack the outside of the pylon, with the idea that any type of fumble would be outside of it, out of bounds, as opposed to inside of it, touchback. There are just a few of these, and look, each year we seem to be able to grab 1 or 2 of them. But this one, I know this one's been debated and discussed a lot, and as is the rule where if a defender, when the ball is fumbled into the end zone, bats it out of the end zone, it's a foul. And there are other times where he can bat it and it's not a foul, but when he bats it out of the back of the end zone, that it's a foul. So it comes up, and when it comes up in a bigger game, you know how that is.
Yes.
The squeaky wheel will get the grease when it's time, but in the meantime, we coach around it, or we discuss it, and we understand it. And I would agree with you; it is an exciting play, especially with today's athlete, and they're so in tune to that. That basically that line that goes around the world, and the vertical portion of the cone, any piece of it, it's a score. I mean, they're all diving for it.
Last one for you. Home Team coming to Netflix, apparently, about your year off from the NFL, coaching your son's youth team, and Kevin James as Sean Payton. Is that a fact?
It is. It's a project that started, over a year and a half, 2 years ago, and Chris Titone, who is my daughter's boyfriend, wrote this with a partner after seeing a little special done on NFL Network, just about, that 6th grade team, where are they now? And so one thing led to another, and Adam Sandler and his group at Netflix and Kevin James, and they began to look closely at the project and decided to do it, and jump forward now to today, Wednesday, May 5th. All the production people are here. The filming people are here. That they begin this whole week. They'll be here for 2 months. I've really not had anything to do with this, even in the writing of it. But it's I think a comedy, feel-good story that Adam always does a great job with, and Kevin and those guys, they always have some entertaining movies, and it's about me coaching this 6th grade team, but there's a ton of it's inspired by a true story.
Yes.
And then I'll leave it at that, because after reading it myself, there's all sorts of funny stuff in there. And it was a good season, having a chance to work with those guys and really going all the way back to, you're cutting oranges, you're mixing Gatorade, you're coming to the practice, you're putting air in the footballs, you're doing everything. And you're also getting to do it with your son, and that meant a lot for me.
Well, I can't wait to see it, and I can't wait to see. So he is literally. It is you, though, right? Like it's Kevin James as Sean Payton.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. He's actually.
All right.
Yeah. He's playing that part.
Mm-hmm.
There are a few other characters that are playing different people in the movie, and Kevin is playing the coach. Though, yeah, he's.
Terrific.
We've talked a few times already. We've had a Zoom. We'll do some more, development relative to. He's got a few things he wants to discuss, and he seems like a fantastic guy.
He is. He's a Jet fan. He's a diehard Jet fan. So you can talk about New York sports with him a little bit.
Interesting.
Yes, it is.
Listen, I didn't know that, and
oh yeah.
Well, we'll have to work on him a little bit here, but I know he lives in New York, in Florida.
That's right.
And
oh yeah.
And I know he's excited about the project.
Well, it's a great story. I know you've spoken about it before, and I can't wait to see it. And I appreciate the time as always, Sean. Let me know when you're here in Los Angeles. I'd love to see you. Really,
Rich, the feeling is mutual, and always great to be on. I really appreciate you.
Like you. Right back at you. That's Sean Payton, Saints head coach, the HC of the New Orleans Saints, at Sean Payton on Twitter. I follow him. You should follow him too. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.